Hey Frank, we're back. I think that just I don't know if maybe your device got warm or something, or
It is. That's very intelligent of you. That's exactly what happened.
well, no, I've experienced that before with with my Apple devices. They get a little too hot and they start to they start to fail. In that couple minutes while we were off, I just searched real quick onto Quora, QUORA.com, Quora,
Yep.
because I just Googled, what happens to mats after the UFC fights,
Yep.
and what I saw several posts on there saying that they usually destroy them, except for if it's a big event. But then I pulled up another site called collectors.com. I'm going to take a look at it, and yeah, there's a bunch of mat relics, as they call it, for like
Yeah.
$3, $10, or whatever. Clips, pieces of the mat, but that's going back 10 years ago. I don't see anything. I don't see anything earlier than 2010. So that's not commonly done anymore. That's on collectors.com. Yeah. Anyways, so I was enjoying what you're saying there about uh, where you left off, and I actually I was like, dang, I lost you on this. I lost you on your thought process. Can you get back into what you were saying a moment ago? Do you remember where you were at?
Yeah, I don't know where it ended, but I was just saying I had interviewed a few years ago. I've always liked random angles as a journalist. I always wanted to try to do the stories that other people weren't doing. I always like the hidden stories, the story behind the story, and I've always taken pride in that. And you and I have talked this before, but we both like to see like what psychologically makes somebody tick, right?
Oh
You know,
boy,
when I was working
let's
as
go there. Let's
yeah,
go there.
when I was working when I was working as a journalist, I was covering homicide cases, and you'd write feature stories, you'd cover city government, county government, state government, and really, so the one thing I liked about being a journalist was you were always doing new things, always interviewing new people. You never knew what the day would throw at you. But
Yeah.
but deep down, the best thing about being a journalist to me, different time, different age of journalism, but the best thing about it was to sit down with a wide variety of people and see what psychologically makes them tick, get inside their head, sort of like a forensic profiler. That's the best part of it. That's the best part of sitting down with the fighters. The beautiful thing about fighters is they don't hide their psychology. Where you're in politics or you're interviewing officials or government people or whatever, a lot of people are not showing their hand. Fighters are very raw, and they don't hide, and that's one of the most beautiful things. That's why you see some of the best interviews in all of sports. Again, Muhammad Ali is probably the most entertaining sports figure of all time. He's a fighter, and fighters don't. You can't hide. You can't pretend. They're very raw. They are who they are. You can't hide that and go out there and do that. And so someone like Matt Hughes, being able to interview him, and I always love the different angles. And one of the angles I was thinking is like, well, first of all, what goes into making a UFC belt? What material is it made of? Who makes them? I interviewed the company that makes them. How has the belt evolved? Who has the most belts? Where are those belts, right? And so back when I was at the University of Maryland, what's up, Jordan? When I was back at the
Back.
University
Sorry,
of
guys.
Maryland,
Good.
University of Maryland for many decades now has had one of the best schools of journalism. But when I was at Maryland, I wrote for the school newspaper, the daily newspaper, but I decidedly and consciously never took a journalism course. And the reason I never took a journalism course was I was like, I didn't want them to train me in the formulas. I didn't want them to train me to think like everyone else. The advantage of them training you in the formal system is you can learn a lot of things quicker. Boom, 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 boom. Right? You can, you can. They can teach you those things. The disadvantage is they might create more of a tunnel vision where it's harder for you. So I always prided. I love to do those like off the beaten path stories, get deeper into the fighter psyche. Justin Gaethje, I was getting into. I remember Justin Gaethje. I'll give you an idea of what I saw when I met Gaethje. When I shook his hand, I think I said this in the last one. The hands were so leathery and so heavy. I was like, where'd he get that? And I'm like, well, then I started tracing it. Like, hey, tell me about your parents. Tell me about your grandparents. Well, my dad was a copper miner and my granddad was a miner. And you're like, well, does mining have anything to do with that kind of hand power and the kind of wrestling power? Does that have anything to do with the horsepower? So now you create a story around that, right? And I think that maybe being a miner and having that bloodline and having the Mexican bloodline in you, I personally think that might have something to do with producing a Justin Gaethje, right? So in any event, that's how we get to where I'm on the phone with Matt Hughes. Matt Hughes, where are your 9 belts? I think one's in the truck. I think one's under the bed. I think I gave one to a buddy at a restaurant and loaned it to him, and I don't know where some of them are right now. I'll have to look. That's not what you expect, right?
Right.
Because,
well, yeah.
because it goes to what we're saying, which is a lot of times the most important things to any of us are not material things. They're other things. Or it might be something that's material, but that material is simply symbolic and it represents something deeply sentimental to you. Those are usually the physical things that are so important because you remember your wife giving it to you, your kid giving it to you, a letter. It's amazing as we go through life. These are a lot of times the things that have the greatest value to us. It's not a material thing. It's the story behind it. It's the memory behind it.
Jordan, I'm not going to say that you miss much. We've gone on a tangent, an interesting conversation about, and I don't even know how we got here, but we're here. You're just dropping in. You're just like you're just shooting. You're dropping in.
Catch up. I wasn't sure what I was listening to.
Yeah. So I had asked the question about what happens to the UFC mats after the fights, and that. We went down a rabbit hole there of discussion, but I think let's go back into that discussion we've been having, Frank, about
the psychological tick. You love the psychological tick topic, which is getting into the psyche.
So let me chat for a second about another dimension of this. And the work I've done in financial due diligence in my career, it's I went about doing financial due diligence in a very unorthodox manner, where I wasn't just like a financial statement auditor, and you're not looking at just how financial statements are presented. I got into Paul Ekman's microexpressions, and I got into there's a bit about pronouns and how people use their pronouns. And that's by James Pennebaker out of University of Texas at Austin. He wrote a book about the Life of Pronouns. That's called syntactical analysis. And then I also got into like some of the weird quirks about statistics and how like the number 9 the number 9 in natural occurring phenomena occurs only like a very low percentage of the time. Okay, so when I have if you have 100,000 balances or something, some kind of amount, if there's a 9 there, there's a weird relationship between the frequency of that first digit occurring. So there's a little weird law. It's called Benford's law. And that's used a lot in fraud detection. It's a way of looking at the data and going, well, that's kind of weird. That's happening a little bit outside of the normal. Like the number one is the first digit in a statistically significant pool of data. Occurs 31% of the time.
Wow.
The number one.
Disproportionate. You would think it would show up at maybe on a 1 to 10, it would show up 10% of the time, but in fact, it shows up disproportionate.
Right. So there's weird. It's a weird mathematical. It's proven out. This is like a law. There's levels. There's levels about these things, and that got me interested in data analytics, looking at financial statement data, because part of a lot of what we're seeing now, if you read the data, if you start to analyze the data. First off, there's some games going on. There's some management of the data. And there's a lot of, and so I don't call it fraud, but there's some funny business going on with data, you know?
I call it fuzzy math. That's an old George W. Bush, the
Yeah.
fuzzy math. Even though I'm not taking a political side, but it's the fuzzy math.
So where I'm going with this, a lot of, you can quantify most things. You can quantify most things. And I get interested in statistics. And so that's why like this summer and for the next year, I'm going to work a little bit more on in my grad studies in data science, stepping back from my profession that I've been working in finance and accounting. So a bit more programming, a little bit more geeky stuff. But anyways, we're getting off the path. But the reason why I say all this,
that's why I called you the man who loves only numbers. And that's a phrase I borrowed from someone else. I used to call you back 6-7 years ago, the man who loved only numbers, which I didn't coin that phrase, but that's how I originally thought of you. Like, this guy loves numbers more than anyone I've ever met.
No, I'm saying all this stuff because, when you talk about getting into someone's psyche and what makes them tick, like that's why I enjoy talking to Jordan a lot about how he approaches his fights and his mindset. Because there's a lot of things you can quantify. And one thing I'd love to have him do, and, sorry, Jordan, I'm speaking to you in the third person, as you're not here, but what I'd like for you to do is if you were to track your heart rate data, track your heart rate. Because there's a lot of, we talked before in a podcast about a month ago, if you were to start training your recovery, how long it takes for you to recover from, if your sport is jiu-jitsu and MMA, and I'd like to see some trend analysis of your recovery of your heart rate after intensity. That way, if you can go 100% for 5 minutes, have a minute rest, and then go another 100% for 5 minutes, a minute rest, and we measure that like once a month, and measure your resting heart rate after 15 minutes of intensity, and we start to see how you're improving, see your body starting to respond, but then start to analyze what are the factors to get your heart rate.
Okay, but wait, where's the fighter psyche in that? I want to see that. You're going
so
physiological.
Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. This is to help, what this is doing is like a little factor analysis of like, okay, is Jordan hydrating enough? Is he getting enough sleep? You start to look at these things that really point to great
Speaking
health.
of that, guys,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you guys a question, especially you, Frank, Mr. Frank Carreri, Frank the Tank, the Health Master. So I know for a fact, I know I'm getting enough sleep. I sleep like 10 hours a night, over 8 hours a night. I always sleep at least 8 hours. Is there so much thing as getting too much sleep? Because lately, I feel like I'm tired, man. Like I sleep like 10 hours and I wake up and I'm still tired.
Can I answer this? Now, Noah has probably read 20 books on this, so he's going to come from the academic vantage point.
No academic, but just what I read.
I'm going to come from the experiential, in the trenches. So, Noah, you can give us the academic. I'm going to give you So, first of all, there is a certain thing called circadian rhythm. And we are meant to, in general, we are wired as humans to go to sleep when it's dark, not it gets dark and then go to sleep 5-6 hours later. We are wired, it gets dark, within a couple hours of that, go to bed. And there is a difference. There's a difference even between, even lunarly, I would even say with the cosmos, our relationship with the cosmos, our relationship. Charles Barkley used to talk about this when he was an NBA player, and he's right. There's a difference between getting to sleep as an NBA player at 4 a.m. and waking up at 11, right? Or, go to sleep at 4 a.m., be an NBA player, go to sleep at 4 a.m., wake up at noon. That's 8 hours. There's a difference between that and getting to sleep at 11 and being up at 7 a.m. That is different. The more in accordance you are with circadian rhythm and sleeping, there's even research now on, your ability to detox. And I've seen research there on your ability to detox. The best early in the morning between the hours of, say, midnight and 3 a.m. And so there's a lot of stuff there with your body and your programming and your metabolism that's wired to circadian rhythm. So 8 hours is not 8 hours is what I'm saying. It matters. Are you getting to bed earlier, and are you getting up when it's daylight, and are you in accordance with sort of how humans have evolved with circadian rhythms? We're not meant to be up, bro, at 11, 12. That's not really how we're evolutionary wired. I'm not saying we can't be in thousands of years, but we're not there now. As an elite athlete, you probably want to be in bed, I would say, between 10 and 12, and then be up by, let's say, 8 a.m. I would recommend that. The more you're waking up after 8 a.m., I say the worse for your circadian rhythm, the worse for your metabolism, the worse for your hormones. Even some people are now tying that with gut bacteria and immune system. So, you're wired to be a daylight creature, not to be sleeping in the daylight. You're not wired to do that. You're wired to be,
That's I don't like
So
to hear this whatsoever.
I was ready to say this makes total sense to me. I think I'm gonna start sleeping outside.
Hey,
Dude, I
listen.
hate sleeping. I love sleeping until noon. But I don't. I can't. I sleep. But truth be told, I was up till 1:30 last night. But I would say, and I slept till 10 something. But I got a solid 9 hours. 9 hours, and I feel great today. But I want to chime in and just say, Jordan, experiment. Just this is experimentation. And that's what this is a practice. But if you just like keep notes on it, and whatever you pay attention to, you start to learn more about. You start to see things. For me, whenever I'm doing this, I'm kind of in this monk mode. Where I'm, when everyone around here goes to sleep, I break out, like I'm writing math formulas. I'm doing programming. It's my quiet time, and that is, for me, I'm habituated to where that's my most intense thought time. Because I have it 2 times a day. About an hour after I get up, that lasts about 2.5 to 3 hours, and then about 3 hours before I go to bed. That last 3 hours that's like all mental for me. From like 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work, mental work. And then as soon as I get up, like I use digital flashcards to learn things, to reinforce things. So the last thing I do before I go to sleep, and the first thing I do when I wake up, when I'm trying to learn stuff, I hit those flashcards to help me learn. For you, I would say do experiment and see what makes you feel good. See what makes you feel good. That you're young, so you have a social life, and all that stuff's going on at night. As long as you can get some good sleep and how you feel, you might be a little sluggish, and you might be feeling sluggish because you might have stayed up later than normal. But find a routine. If you can find a routine and stick to routine, that's the best part. A routine, I think, it serves you most. I try to get outside a couple hours a day for 15 to 30 minutes. 15, 30 minutes of sunshine for me is all I need. But routine, I believe.
No sunscreen the whole time here, guys. The whole time I've been
I'm gonna
here.
put my bed outside and start sleeping outside.
Hell no.
I would say this is the thing. So Conor McGregor talked about this. Fighters. So there are exceptions to this. You have academics, you have doctors, you have some creative types who are much more creative nocturnally, right? So people are wired a little bit different, right? There are people who get a lot done. Everybody else is asleep, and the world stands still at night. And there are some fighters, like if you think like Floyd Mayweather or Conor, since they're the marquee fighters, right? Conor's not fighting until 9. He's the headliner, right? Floyd's the headliner. These guys aren't fighting until 9:30 at night, right? Which if you're on the East Coast, it's like, so if he's fighting at 9:30 Vegas time, he's fighting at 12:30
midnight
New York time on his body.
Midnight, right?
So
middle of the night.
Being up at 5 a.m. might not be the smartest thing per se if you want your body to be most awake at 9:30 at night on the Pacific Coast or midnight. So there is something to be said for that. In that case, just as me, in general, what I would recommend there is the fighter getting up early but napping. I would recommend the naps that like a Muhammad Ali and a lot of elite boxers have taken. I would recommend the naps, right? So that way you still get up early, you still get the work in. I'm a big fan of early because I think early, is a lot of psychological advantage. John Smith used to say that. Gus D'Amato and Mike Tyson used to say that. The idea, John Smith, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, used to say, he used to wake up at 2 a.m. I don't recommend this for people, but he used to wake up at 2 a.m. and go work out at 2 a.m. And what he was thinking is, I'm working out when the Russians are sleeping. When they're sleeping, I'm working out. And then when they're not training too, he would work out. He's like, I'm training, the Russians aren't, right? So he would that was a psychological thing for some guys. Tyson up there at 4:35 in the morning is like, I'm out here in the cold running, my opponent's not, right? So I'm personally a fan of getting up early in the morning, but I'm also a fan, like a guy like Jordan, I'd be a fan of an hour, half hour of naps too. Now you might say, well, Frank, if I'm taking naps, I'm not going to get to bed till 3 a.m. Now it creates a problem. Well, then your nap might have to be at 2 or 3 and not at 6 or 7, or if your nap's at 6 or 7. But I'm still a fan. I think this is my experience. I think the vast majority of people are wired and will be most productive by far getting up early, 5, 6, and 7. I believe that. I believe most people overwhelmingly are wired that way. Their circadian rhythms, their bodies are wired that way. I believe that's the best thing for most people, and the exception would be naps. Now, again, if you're a hedge fund guy or like what you're talking about, Noah, if you're some kind of creative maniac, then you might be an outlier. But for an elite athlete, I would say, personally, if I was your coach and you wanted my advice, everyone is different, but I would say 5, 6, 7 a.m. I would want you up by then. And I think on a discipline level, on a circadian rhythm level, and then let's work in naps. But what time would that nap be and how long? Because if you're napping for 2 hours, you might not get to bed till 3, whatever. So it might have to be a 30-minute nap, right? But that's my general advice that I've seen. Now, I'm very nocturnal too. We're all three here nocturnal. I love nocturnal. But I'll be honest with you, my life runs the best. The earlier I get up, my life runs the best.
Horrible for me.
But I love nocturnal.
Yeah. No, I understand the mindset there. And I've lived, I was an air traffic controller in the Corps. We were working shifts. So once a month, I would have to work. So what we did is we'd work 3 days. It was either 2 days. It was 2 days mornings, 2 days eves, and then 2 days off. That's how we worked. 2 days, 2 days, 2 days. And it was always rotating. However, because of the position of my role on the team, I would work midnights as well, the overnights. So, and growing up, my mother was always up until 4 in the morning. That's just how she was. And I think that's kind of how how I am. It's like, that's just I've done them all. I've worked, I've had day jobs most of my life. But if I could rule the world and choose my own time, I'd be at the office at 1 p.m. I'd start the day at 1 p.m. and work until 10 or 11. And then go home, take a break, and then hit the bed.
But you've worked, Noah, with a lot of very powerful people in the financial sector. A lot of the people that are running things, my experience has been that they're very early risers.
Yes.
Really make the world go round are very early risers in general. Now, what have you seen? That's been my experience.
No, you're totally right. Yeah, they started 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. and they go until 1 a.m. Like regularly when I was working in banking, my regular hours, and even just this past year, be in the office by 9:30. Always by 9:30. Sharp cutoff in New York. 9:30. If you're not in the office by 9:30, not good. So you got to be in your desk by 9:30, and for 10 years regularly, I was there. Like to me, it would feel too early for me to be leaving before 9 p.m. Yeah, it would feel too early if I wasn't traveling that day.
So what what I view this as, this is just me personally, and I would say this to a young athlete like Jordan, and there are exceptions. So we're talking about like Connor and Floyd. There are absolutely exceptions. But I would say by and large, this is what I would say to someone like Jordan. I would say your sleep a lot of times for a highly, Jordan, you're looking for every little edge you can get. If you can improve by 3% this month, that would be huge for a guy like you, right? If you could improve by 5% in the next 2 months, that would be huge, right? You know, little things add up. And I would say like your sleep regimen is an extension of your discipline. It's a chance for you to get an advantage over other athletes on the discipline level, on the psychological, because our relationship with discipline is related to our mindset. When I start winning battles, do you think anybody wants to get up at 5 a.m.? Do you think Tyson wanted to get up at 5 a.m.? And nobody wants to do that. But do you think John Smith wanted to get up at 2 a.m.? No, he didn't want to get up. Kobe Bryant is up at 5 a.m. He's out there working. Larry Bird is shooting hoops in the snow. Nobody really wants to do that. But the psychological is, I'm doing what most won't do. I'm doing what even a lot of elite guys won't do. And when you discipline yourself that way, those add up. Nobody wants, a lot of times, who wants to just jump out of bed? A lot of people don't. But the one who wants to jump out of bed is saying, hey, I'm winning these psychological battles. On those little levels, you're winning the little micro battles psychologically. And that adds up. You know, when you're like, I'll take the cold shower, they won't take it. You know, I'll crawl and I'll clean the mats, they won't clean them. I'll do what they won't do. Those little things, they add up and they exercise your discipline muscles. And that to me is part of the edge of this. And in addition to the circadian rhythm things, and there's a lot of truth to that, people. Now, there are exceptions, and there's creative people. I've seen phenomenal people that were nocturnal. But I would say overwhelmingly, I think we're wired to, get to bed, most of us between, say, 10 and 11, 11:30. And I think that overwhelmingly, the highest performers I've seen across industries in general are early risers, including in the fight. They're up and at 'em. They're not, let's lay in bed, let's roll over, let's hit the alarm clock. And I've been that person before. But when I'm operating at my best, I'm up early and I'm out of bed and I'm ready to get it and I'm doing what the other people won't do, and that gives me a psychological edge.
Jordan, when do you regularly train jiu-jitsu? Like when it's non-quarantine?
When do I usually train?
Yeah, when you train jits?
Usually Monday through Friday at 11 a.m. And then I train a couple other training sessions throughout the week, like a couple days throughout, like probably 2 or 3 days. I'll hit the 7:30 class.
7:30. Yeah. How long is that? How long is that one?
7:30 to 9.
7:30 to 9. Yeah. At Henzo's, when I'm training jits, it's 7:30 to 9. Plus, I'll walk back to the apartment, and after shower, and I'll pick something up, a bite to eat, a Whole Foods, because you can't eat before jits. And so that I'm bedding down, and I gotta be back at work in the morning by 9. Yeah, I'm hitting the bed by midnight.
I told Noah that his book, his biography, when he comes out with it's going to be called Noah's Ark. So there's
Noah's Ark.
That's random. That's random, Frank.
Now, by the way, I know. I got to get that in. I love random. I love.
I got to get that in.
Random doesn't make sense to you, but it makes sense to my brain. Random. Hey, but I got to get ready. My computer is getting really warm, but I want to ask one question because this is important stuff. This is not jiu-jitsu related, but this is life jitsu related, right? The art of life. So there was a friend, and she did, everyone's doing that TikTok thing. I don't do the TikTok thing because I'm not into all the special effects or whatever. She did a TikTok, and it was like Mexican, really, really pretty. She's a very attractive friend, and I used to know her back in Vegas. Anyway, she did a TikTok, and it was like Mexican. It was like an acting skit. It was really cool, and she's like really good in that, and she's and so I sent like the sun, right? My emoji, I sent the sunshine, just the sunshine emoji, right? Nice and friendly, and then I sent like clapping, like, wow, that was almost like an acting skit. Like she did it. It was really well done. And I said that. So she sent back to me, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. 3 different thumbs up. What does that mean on an emoji level? What is thumbs up? Why did I get 3 thumbs up? Is that like a thing? What does that mean? What is 3 thumbs up? Like 1 thumbs up, end of message. another thumbs up and a message, another thumbs up and a message, and I'm like, that's an interesting emoji. What is that?
Oh my! So now we're having to interpret your
Yeah.
we got to give you an edge on your dating now.
Freud, no, not dating. I don't have a date. But Freud was analyzing dreams. We need to analyze emojis the way that Freud analyzed dreams.
Consider the source.
Emojis are a tough one, man.
Huh?
Emojis can be deciphered a bunch of different ways.
It was a blue thumb. It was the blue one. There's different. You can make the thumb different colors. This was a blue one, a generic blue thumb.
Coming from a guy who said earlier, you know, the reason why you like to one thing you enjoy about interviewing fighters is they're so direct. Here you're trying to interpret 21st century hieroglyphics. Can't help you there, man. Can't help you. I cannot help you. You're gonna have to you're gonna have to go to a website that's like what emoji translator.
Well, I kind of asked for it because I said she probably, in her defense, she probably didn't know what to make of mine. Like, she does this great skit on TikTok, and it's very well done and very well acted, and she looked great. And then here I am sending the sunshine and applause, and she's probably like, okay, applause makes sense, but why sunshine? What does that mean? Like, and then it's like, well, how do I respond to someone sending me a sunshine emoji, right? You know, I love the sunshine emoji because you guys know I'm a big fan of the sun, so I use the sunshine emoji a lot, and I don't think a lot of people use it, but I use it. I'm a big fan of it. So.
I don't know. Frank, why don't you use Twitter?
That's a great question, my friend. It isn't weird that I don't. It's interesting because right now my buddy was telling me, you know, there's a lot of censorship going on more of the platforms where they're really coming in and saying that's the fact check authorities say that X, Y, and Z. And my buddy was saying that one of the areas that doesn't have as much of that right now is Twitter. He's like, Twitter is, to him, on a free speech level, it's more free. That's his opinion, right? He's a smart guy, and he's like, it seems like Twitter is not as quick to just take stuff down that might be controversial or debated, whereas some other platforms are like, that's just false, that's fake news, whatever, boom, we take it down, we flag it. And he was telling me Twitter, so I was thinking, well, wow, I don't post a lot on Twitter. Maybe I need to take a look at Twitter.
Yeah, well, the show has a Twitter account, and you know, I'd like to see, you know, maybe if we take, you know, during the week we start just going a little bit more on Twitter. Jordan, do you have a Twitter account at this time?
I don't believe in Twitter.
Oh, you don't believe in Twitter? Dang, I was hoping you would get on it because I think we would. If you just saw what John Jones and Chael Sonnen just did to each other on Twitter in the last 24 hours. It was brutal. Brutal. John Jones calling this has-been fighter with man boobs. It's been harsh in Twitterland. And Chael just did a takedown on John Jones on Twitter. So I wanted to invite you guys to sample of the Twitterverse. It's kind of fun over there. It's a little wild.
I was real reluctant to even get on Facebook. I don't even like Facebook. I'm a fan of Instagram. I like Instagram.
Yeah, I know. You got Instagram going. Your Instagram game is strong. Can I get you on Twitter?
You want me to get me on Twitter?
Yeah, man. The three of us on Twitter. That way during the week, because a lot of our conversations we're having back and forth, we should share that and make that part of the show at some point.
Well, it's interesting because Twitter really is the domain more of like the journalists and the writers and the writers, and that really is it's sort of that.
That's why I don't like Twitter. I gotta read too much. It's like just like words. I'm not trying to read all that much.
You can do your emojis, man. You can post your Instagram posts on there.
Well, you know where I really feel a little bit like LinkedIn is a place where I love LinkedIn, but I don't post a lot on there because I just don't know. Like, I don't know what. Like, it's kind of an in between. You know,
it's professional.
It's
too business.
Tight.
That's like no. You better have that button. You have that button tie. You better be there, man.
And what's weird about that, Noah, is I actually love LinkedIn. So I love LinkedIn, but
I hate it.
I never have any idea of what to put there because, like you just said, it's kind of so stiff and so
It's
like
very stiff.
so formal.
Stay
and,
out.
like, I love the idea of it, but in actuality and practicality, it's like, hey. So I really should be more active on Twitter as a guy with a journalist background and Prism, and I should be more active on LinkedIn. I love it, but I don't really use either of them very much.
Well, you see how much volume I'm giving you guys during the week when I'm texting you stuff. I'm gonna just change that over to Twitter, and because I've been texting. Go ahead.
I was gonna say the only reason why I would want to get on Twitter is to watch my man, the Donald Trump. His tweets are legendary. I'm so happy when I see his tweets.
And
Donald
his son.
Trump's tweets are legendary, my friend. It's the only reason why I've thought about getting on Twitter is just to follow him and look at his tweets.
All right, so
hilarious.
Can I get you guys? Jordan wears no gi on Twitter.
I don't get that. I'm gonna use
No.
Somebody made me download a TikTok too, and I absolutely hate TikTok.
I wouldn't
I feel like Twitter and TikTok are feminine. I don't know.
No, not Twitter. Not Twitter. You can smash mouth. You can smash mouth your opponent.
That's why I feel like it's feminine. I don't know. I'm not into that. I don't like.
You do have a handle. No, I know, but you can put photos on it. You can put your links to Instagram on it. You could cross post to every time you post on Instagram, it can cross post over to Twitter.
I can do that for Facebook too, but I just don't. It's different. My Instagram, and my Facebook's different. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to see because this week I posted something about James Miller, the guy who parachuted into Evander Holyfield fight. Evander Holyfield Tyson fight. Because I was curious. I went down some rabbit holes this week. I had a little break. On my breaks, when I'm not doing stuff, I look up stuff. So I'm wondering, what happened to this guy? And Frank, you guys see, I'm texting you guys all that stuff. I'm just gonna throw that on Twitter, going forward.
Well, Big Mean Green. That's one thing I like about you. You and I think all of us here. You have a really high curiosity motor. And I like that. I think that's a really beautiful quality. I think a lot of people, they don't love life, the zest of life, and they're not as hungry for life and to experience life. And it's because their curiosity is just not in overdrive. It's but the downside of curiosity is sometimes you can be very monkey-minded, and your attention is you can't stop the brain, and then you're staying up till 2 and 3 a.m. every morning because you're so curious and you're so. The beautiful thing though is that life is fascinating. Life is interesting when you're like you or Joe Rogan or even me and and Jordan. It's like when you're really a curious person. That's one of the best superpowers you can have.
If you see what I've been doing at night, I'm writing an equation right here just to.
Would you relax with your equation?
I'm just doing stuff called P-hat. P-hat.
Hey, by the way, no offense to you, because I wish that Noah had hair. You look good. That's a good look for you, though. That is it. Like you look like you're a smart guy. You look smart with no hair. I need a haircut bad, and I cannot get a haircut around here, and that's horrible. Like my hair is driving me. This whole COVID thing, 19, and trying to get a haircut. I need a haircut, and I'm very particular about who cuts my hair. So I'm having bad hair days all the time now, and it's really nerve-wracking with this whole.
Haircuts.
Have that problem.
There you go.
Is that a haircut equation?
No, that's estimate. This linear least squares correlation. Correlation. Have like a bunch of dots on a graph. You're like, well, give me a line through that, so how that makes sense. That's just
By the way, let me.
Oh my God!
Since we were talking about fighter psyche earlier and fighter mindset, and then we're both into that. We're all into that. Go get your hands on. I've only got like 2. My second TEDx talk is better than my first. I think the first one's got 150,000 or so views with Misha Tate. Basically Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a better world. And that, I'm so grateful that Misha and Annalyn Molina worked with me to do that one. The second one, a big ego gets a bad rap, is I think a much better. It's not great. I could have made that a lot better, but I think it's a better speech. But it's only got like 2,000 or so, 2,500 views. It's not doing well. So anybody out there wants to get a little more of a window into my take on fighter psyche, friendly plug here, Frank Forza. Big ego gets a bad rap, TEDx talk. I would appreciate it if we could get a little momentum out of that. I gave the speech. I put a lot of time and effort in there. It's not the most perfect speech, whatever, but you get the idea. It's definitely a different way. Robert Drysdale and I were talking a couple weeks ago about the ego, and we were talking about an extension of that talk and how him and I see ego a lot different than a lot of other people do. And, and I just think that would give people an idea of sort of the tick, at least the starting point to say, we maybe need to think even about ego a little bit different. But anyway, help me out. It's an interesting vantage point. It's an interesting take on ego. And 2,500, I think the organizers, when they brought me on, thought that we would get more clicks and more views than that, more eyeballs, and we didn't. So
gotcha.
It'd be
I'll
nice if...
I'll take a look at it and I'll pop it on Twitter. I'm going to start posting my stuff on Twitter.
Okay. Well, I'll post Everyman BJJ on there, and well, listen, I think it's time to wrap up, guys. I'm going to roast in this sun. I mean, I'm a big fan of the sun, but I can't stay here.
Yeah, you can't stay in the heat too long. Yeah.
Roast. Even though Noah's 15, 20-minute man, I'm I got the Mediterranean blood, so
yeah,
I can handle it.
Yeah, during the quarantine, I actually found out my genealogy too. I went down that rabbit hole. All Greens, Revolutionary War heroes, all military people, all military people out of England and Scotland.
Like a sniper. When I first met you, I thought you were secretly. I think this guy's a sniper or something. That's what I thought.
I would have been if I'd have known about that stuff. Instead, I went in the air wing. I would have been Jordan.
Guys.
Yeah.
Jordan
wears no gi on Twitter. Gonna make it happen? Please. I'm asking. I said please. The magic words, please, right?
I mean, I just have talked so much trash on Twitter over the years. I just don't know if I can see myself getting a Twitter.
Okay. All right. Maybe. All right. Well, you know what?
Think about it.
It's a time capsule. You put it out there, and over time, let it grow, man. Yeah. Okay, guys. Thanks for your time today.
You guys have a great rest of the day. Everybody out there, God bless. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. God bless everybody.
Part B, episode 18, episode 19. Take care, guys.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.